Now for our second example, we now have 6x squared minus 23x plus 7, and we're going to factor this out just like how we factored out the first example from our previous example. So 6x squared minus 23x plus 7, so multiply 6 and 7 and we'll have 42. And now we're going to look for factors of 42 that when we add them up will be equal to negative 23. And in this case, to be able to produce this type of factor, we need to have two numbers that are negative, because negative times negative is positive, but when we add them up will be equal to negative. So the factors of 42 that will give us negative 23 will be negative 21 times negative 2. So once again, sometimes it would take us a little while to think of those two numbers, but with practice, it will be a lot easier. So now we're moving on to the second stage of our factoring method. So copying the first term, which is 6x squared, the new middle term will now be 21x minus 2x, and then we'll just copy our last term, which is positive 7. And by grouping, we now have 2x squared minus 21x, and we have negative 2x plus 7. So from our first group, the greatest common factor would be 3x, and for our second group, you will notice that the first term is negative. Now in this type of factoring technique, it's safe to say that we would want to always make the first term to be positive. So this case, I will take negative 1 as my GCF, so when I simplify it later, I will have an identical factors for my first group and my second group. So let's go ahead and factor out 6x squared minus 21x. So by factoring out 3x, we are now left with 2x minus 7. And if we take out the negative 1 from negative 2x plus 7, we are now going to have 2x minus 7, which you will notice will give us an identical factors form for our first two parentheses. So now that we have our 2x minus 7 is our greatest common factor, we can now pull out 3x minus 1 and group 2x minus 7 right here to find the factors of 6x squared minus 23x plus 7. Now, another use of factoring is to help us solve for the solutions of a quadratic equation or any polynomial for this matter. So in this case, using the zero product property, if we solve 3x minus 1 equal to 0 and 2x minus 7 equal to 0, we'll be able to solve for the solutions of our quadratic equations. And in this case, the solution of this particular quadratic equation will be x equals 1 over 3 and x equal to 7 over 2 by the zero product property. And now for our third example, we have 7x squared minus 26x minus 8. So just like what we did before, we're going to multiply 7 and negative 8, which is negative 56. And we'll use the middle term, which is negative 26, as our guide to find the perfect factor that we're looking for that will match our quadratic equation. And in this case, the numbers that we are looking for will be negative 28 and positive 2, because negative 28 times positive 2 is negative 56, and negative 28 plus 2 is negative 26. Now once again, sometimes it takes a while to find the factors, so be patient in finding the factors of the numbers that we're looking for just to complete the puzzle that will help us factor 7x squared minus 26x minus 8. So now that we're done with our first stage, let's move on to our second stage right here, wherein we're going to rewrite our equation by copying 7x squared and writing out the new middle term, which is negative 28x plus 2x minus 8, which came from the original equation. So by grouping, we'll now have 7x squared minus 28x plus 2x minus 8. And by using the greatest common factor, for the first group, the greatest common factor will be 7x, leaving us with x minus 4. And for the second group, the greatest common factor would be 2, leaving us with x minus 4. With the two parentheses being the same, we can factor out x minus 4 leaving us with 7x plus 2 in our polynomial. So the factors of 7x squared minus 26 minus 8 would be 7x plus 2 and x minus 4.